how do you get out of your comfort zone? And more importantly, what happens when you break free from it? Find out now on this episode of the Unlock Success Podcast.
This is the Unlock Success Podcast. We're helping entrepreneurs around the world dive deep into the keys you need to shatter excuses, believe in yourself, and help you achieve your highest goals. Here's your host, 8-figure entrepreneur and the living legend of internet marketing, Anthony Morrison.
So there's one place in the world that's virtually impossible to make money or grow your business. It's not a real place. You can't drive there and you can't take a plane there. In fact, it only exists in your mind, but it's very real. That place is called the comfort zone. And today I want to show you how your comfort zone is keeping you from your highest potential, of course, and how to break out of it even if you feel completely stuck. Hey, listen, my name is Anthony Morrison, and over the past decade, I have launched dozens of products and softwares and different businesses. And I'll be the first one to tell you that with each successful venture, I had to get out of my own way, out of the things that were comfortable to me. And while not everything has worked, right, I can honestly say it's been worth it to break free from that comfort zone. Now, what I do is I love to talk about the successes and the pitfalls I've had over the years so that you can avoid the mistakes that I have made, right? And hopefully apply some of the stuff that's got me where I'm at today to your own life. So if that's the kind of thing that you're into, if that's the kind of stuff that you really like, then this podcast is going to be something that you absolutely must listen to each and every week. Because on the Unlock Success Podcast, my goal is to dive into the things that have really made me successful, not the X's and O's, not the here's what I clicked and here's what I didn't click in my business, but the mindset, right? The mindset that it takes and the thought processes that it really takes to be massively successful. Now, on today's podcast, we're going to break things up into different parts, right? Because I want to talk to you about a few different parts of breaking free from your comfort zone. And the first one is I really want to talk to you about the comfort zone and the money zone, okay? Listen, if you ever want to make money, you've got to get out of your comfort zone. And let me explain to you how and why and how this works. If you're doing what you're doing right now, okay, and you're happy with your life and everything is great and you wake up in the morning and you go to work and you come back home and you get your paycheck or however it is that you're making money, right? The only way to ever make more money is to stop doing what you're doing right now. You can't wake up and repeat today, tomorrow, okay, and expect to get a different result. You have to have the wherewithal to get outside of your comfort zone. See, the thing is it's human nature to do what we're comfortable doing, right? I mean, that's just common sense. Like, we are going to gravitate to what's comfortable. But the interesting thing is that what's comfortable is usually something that requires less risk, right? It's usually going to be something that's a little less risky. We gravitate to the path of least resistance. We gravitate to the thing that is going to be the easiest and the most sure. And you hear people say all the time, like, we want to make investments that are sound investments, and they're investments that our parents have made and our grandparents have made and our great-grandparents have made. And, we'll talk about it in a little while. When things like Bitcoin come along, it's like, oh my gosh, and you can't do it because you're not able and capable of getting outside of that comfort zone. But the only way to get to the money zone is to break free from where you're at, right? I'll never forget for me anyway, at least in my life and in my business, we sit there and I used to think to myself, like, how am I going? I was growing up in Mississippi, didn't have really anybody to tell me where I needed to go, what I needed to do, or how I was going to get to where I wanted to be. I knew that I wanted to be successful. I knew that I needed to do something different. I knew that I needed to be somewhere different, but I didn't know really how to get there, right? I see everybody else that I grew up with, and they've got good jobs, and they're selling insurance, or they're selling real estate, or they're medical supply reps, and they're making decent money, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, that's comfortable. I could do that, but I wanted more, right? And so what did I do? I loaded myself up on a 45-foot bus, filmed a television show, and drove around the country teaching people about internet marketing, completely outside of my comfort zone. I used to freak out when I got in front of a crowd, or not even a crowd, a schoolroom full of people, right, to read a report. And I would just clam up and freak out. And here I was putting myself on national television and then running around the country, getting in front of rooms of 500, 300, 200 people at a time, teaching them internet marketing, right? Completely outside of my comfort zone, but it was in the money zone. Because it's when we get out of that comfort zone, those norms, right, that we can really create. We can be creative people. We can do things that haven't been done before. The way we ran our live events had never been done before. And we crushed it. We did great. We made a ton of money. It was one of the most, I think, rewarding experiences of my life. It also brought me in contact with a lot of the people that have helped me get to where I'm at today. And so part two of this is that, you've got part one, and part two is where this applies in real life. So a few examples. How about Bitcoin? Okay. So we hosted a training years ago, but people didn't take it because they didn't feel comfortable with it. Like I said earlier, stocks are comfortable, right? But it does require a little bit of bravery if you're going to go something completely different, right? Going live or showing your face on camera. People want to be invisible but still make a lot of money. That's just not that possible, right? The people who are really crushing it out of the gate and people that are making money on the internet are getting out of their comfort zone and putting themselves out there, right? I'll give you another example of that. I could give you a plethora of these, right? But one of the things that comes to mind for me, at least, from the Bitcoin standpoint, is I used to have people that would tell me all the time, they'd say, Anthony, this is stupid, this is dumb, you shouldn't buy this. And I had all this Bitcoin that was saved up, right? Like I had bought just tons and tons and tons of Bitcoin, right? And even my own wife, she'd be like, Anthony, you just need to sell this Bitcoin. You need to get out of this Bitcoin, put some money in stocks. And I held on to my Bitcoin and I held on to my Bitcoin and I held on to my Bitcoin, and then my Bitcoin went up, right? Now, I sold it before it went to $60,000 a coin. I'm not going to lie to you at all. I'm not going to say that I am the investing guru. What I'm going to say is that by investing in that Bitcoin and by being someone who was buying it at one of the early stages, I had the opportunity to make a whole lot more money than people that waited around and basically missed the boat. You hear people talk about that all the time, is I missed the boat. Well, the reason that people miss the boat in that kind of, analogy is because they're stuck in their comfort zone. They're not capable of doing something that maybe hasn't been done before. They're not capable of thinking outside the box and pushing themselves into a place that they're not comfortable. Part three of this is I want to give you some personal examples of me getting outside of my comfort zone so you can understand just how impactful this can be on your life. So one of the first things that I'll talk about is my television show, right? I was 26 years old, I think, and I decided I wanted to write a book and I wanted to sell it, right? Now, I didn't know really what I was going to be doing or how I was going to do it. I just knew that I wanted to sell my book. And so while a lot of people would go the comfortable, easy route, you call a publisher, you try to get yourself a publishing deal, and then they put your books in a bookstore and you wait and hope and pray that somebody comes along and buys them, right? That's the norm. For me, I said, no. I want to take this book and I want to go straight to consumers. I want to tell them why it's important, why they need it, how it's going to impact their life, what kind of a difference it's going to make. How can I do that? So I called QVC. They told me that there was no way that they were bringing me on QVC to sell my book. And so I said, okay, well, QVC is on television. That's where I want to be because I know I can reach people. So I'm filming a TV show. And so that's what I did. I filmed a television show to sell my book. I'd never done this before. I walked into the studio and here was this guy, larger than life personality. And he had massive hands. He just this like persona. I don't know how to explain it any better than that. And I sat down with him, had no clue who he was. And he said, hey, my name is Mark Victor Hansen. I said, it's great. Wonderful. Nice to meet you. Let's do this interview. Had no clue that he was the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and that he was one of the best-selling nonfiction authors in the history, right? And I'm thinking to myself, when I found this out, I'm thinking like, wow, I sat down and gave an interview with a guy who sold just millions and millions and millions of copies of his books, telling him and the world why my book is a book they should buy. And it's the very first one I've written. Completely outside of my comfort zone. That show went on to absolutely crush it, sell over 1 million copies of my book. Never would have sold 1 million copies if I had lived in my comfort zone. Never would have sold 1 million copies if I didn't push myself to do something I'd never done before, right? Second thing that comes to mind, and it tells you just how impactful getting outside of your comfort zone really can be. Because I filmed that show with Mark Victor Hansen, he said, hey, why don't you speak at one of my events? I said, okay, still a little outside of my comfort zone, but I'll do it. So he had me speak at one of his events. And then at that event, there were some people from the Napoleon Hill Foundation, Sharon Lecter, like all of these people. And they said, Anthony, we would love for you to speak at this 3 Feet from Gold event, right? In Anaheim, California. And I said, all right, I'll speak, why not? Right? I just spoke at Mark Victor Hansen's event. I'm like, heck yeah, I'll speak. So I get to this event and I immediately realize I'm in over my head. Even though speaking at events had become something that was in my comfort zone, speaking at events with 5,000 people was completely out of my comfort zone. Speaking at events where the CEO of CVS Pharmacy and some of the most prominent and successful and wealthy and smart people in our country were on the stage right before me was way outside of my comfort zone. And I'll never forget, I was in the back. I'd seen the room and the thousands of people and the lights and the darkness. I was just like freaking out. And they said, son, get yourself on that stage and speak, right? Like they're calling my name, and I'm freaking out. Didn't want to go up there. And I finally took a deep breath and I realized, I said, I've never once gotten more out of life by being scared to do something I've never done before. And it's literally the thoughts that went through my head when I was standing like right behind the curtain. I'll never forget, it was right behind the curtain, and Mark was there, Sharon was there, and they're like, you're going to be fine. And so I walked out there and I was like on a mission, right? Just delivering all this content, teaching. Well, I forgot they had a timer. I'm not very good with time. And so 45 minutes in, I had not gotten to, half of my slides. I was supposed to sell at this event in order to raise money for this foundation, and I had not really gotten to the point where I was able to sell. So finally, I just at the very end, I threw up a slide and I said, hey, look, if you're interested in me teaching you how to do some of this stuff, here's the thing. Check these people out at the back of the room. They can get you signed up. We'll hook you up. We'll teach you, right? All of a sudden, you just see like mass chaos, just people going to the back. And they're signing up, and they're you could just tell people absolutely loved this presentation. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, I got outside of my comfort zone. I now know I can speak to a room of 5,000 people. And not only can I speak to a room of 5,000 people, I can command their attention. I can move the needle. I can make them feel something, because people don't get up and spend their money if they don't feel something, right? So I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. This is what I got out of this event. But like I said, a lot of times you get more out of breaking free from this comfort zone than you even imagine. So about a week later, I get a text message on Twitter, or DM on Twitter, from a girl that says, my parents were at this event in California and they thought that this was amazing and they thought you were great. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. I looked at the picture of this girl and she's a model. And so I'm like, well, I should probably respond. And so I respond and said, thank you so much. Tell me a little bit about you. And then eventually she was from Seattle, Washington. So her parents had gone from Seattle, Washington down to Anaheim, California. I had come from Mississippi to Anaheim, California. They heard me speak. They went back home to Seattle. They told their daughter Twitter messaged me. And shortly thereafter, I'm on an airplane. I'm going to Seattle. I meet this girl. That was about 12 years ago, almost 13 years ago. And today, we've been together ever since. We're married. She lives in Mississippi, and we've had a wonderful, like, over decade together. And the only reason that I even know her is because I walked on that stage. If I'd let my fear and my desire to stay in my comfort zone control me and control my decisions, I wouldn't have met my wife, right? I wouldn't have not just known that I could speak to a room of 5,000 people, but I would have never met the woman that I've married. And so I think it's very important, as you listen to some of these stories and as you hear some of the things that happen, that you really and truly start defining what your comfort zone is and just have awareness, right? Like, a lot of times making a change in our lives is all about awareness. It's about being aware that the opportunity is there in that moment, right? You don't want to look back and say, man, I should have. You've got to have awareness. Be more aware each and every day, right, of the things that come your way, the opportunities that come your way, right? And then when you decline something, or before you decline something, think about, am I declining that because it's outside of my comfort zone? Am I not going here, doing this, speaking here, taking this interview, whatever the case may be, because it's outside of my norm? Is that the reason I'm saying no to it? And if it is, start turning those no's into yeses. And that's how you grow as a person. That's how you grow your business. And that's how you create more opportunity in your life to excel at every single thing that you might want to excel at, right? But it all requires being aware and turning no's into yeses and breaking free from your comfort zone. Listen, I hope that this has inspired you. I hope it's maybe kind of thrown some little, light bulbs off in your mind of things that you could have done, decisions you could have made, or decisions that you can still make in the future a little differently. My goal is to help you through my life experience. That's the whole reason I created this podcast, is to share the things that I've been through, the experiences I have, and the lessons that I've learned, so that you can learn through that, right? And you can make good decisions that are going to hopefully help you break out of your comfort zone and reach your peak potential. So I hope this has helped you, and I look forward to having you join me next week on another episode of the Unlock Success Podcast.